This is Goals with Soul, the podcast for visionary coaches and entrepreneurs, building your business with inspired action. In alignment with your mission and authentic message, so you can create impact for your soul clients and feel lit up every day. I'm your host, Jo Ingram, married mum of 3 daughters from London and a former ad agency director turned business coach and strategist. In Goals with Soul, we blend revenue generation with energetics, marketing strategies with pranic healing, and ambitious business goals with our soul's desires. If you're looking to build your business with less efforting and more ease, this is the podcast for you. Let's dive in. Hi, I'm Jo Ingram and welcome to Goals with Soul. Now you might hear a little background noise, which is some rain, because I'm sitting in the car right now waiting for my eldest daughter to do her driving theory test, which is the written exam for her to get her driver's license. And it's making me think about all those years ago when I got my own driver's license and the number of years that have passed since, too many I care to mention. And this is coming up for me particularly in the wake of me doing my first brand shoot last week. And I've never been somebody that's been particularly comfortable on camera. I always shied away. Even when I was younger, I wasn't particularly confident about my looks and I didn't tend to hit a good pose most of the time. And I seem to have got a bit better at it now I'm a bit older, and certainly since becoming an entrepreneur, when photographs and social media are so much a part of what we have to do, I've become far more practiced at creating pictures that are half decent and I can certainly feel okay about posting. But when I knew that I was booking my brand photo shoot and I was paying someone what feels like a lot of money to take photographs of me, I realized that it brought up a lot of thoughts about how I felt about myself and my levels of confidence, and particularly around the idea of aging and how I wanted to look and whether I wanted to be authentic or not. Now, if you tuned into a recent episode, I talked about how I was very intentional about selecting the photographer that I worked with. She's somebody that feels very strongly about photographing women in their authenticity. She doesn't use clever filters and she's very careful to use empowering poses. And I really like this because it leads very much into my brand and what I teach, which is a form of radical authenticity and about finding your unique message, something that comes entirely from you. It's of you and no one else. And it makes me think a lot about how radical we need to get, how authentic. Where is the line? And of course, it's completely individual. Everybody's going to be different about how much they want to share. But one thing is true. When you do start to be very authentic and you start to share and be vulnerable, the resonance that happens, the way you can reach people is just magnified well beyond anything that you can get from any swipe file or any copy and paste of anything. When it comes from you, it represents a completely perfect blend of all the things that you find important and all the struggles that you've been through. And really, when you start to create content around those and structure your offers that involve those, there's almost a magical exchange that takes place with your ideal client. It's like you literally calling to them. And whilst I teach it, I am certainly not immune to wanting to hold back on certain things and not really realizing that they're things that should be shared. And around this idea of being photographed and aging, I realized that I'm not alone in this. And look, hands up if you agree with this statement. When I'm in Instagram and when I'm doing reels, I love the filters. Now, filters are my best friends. Absolutely love them. It doesn't matter if I'm wearing no makeup. It doesn't matter what I feel like when I get into a reel and I click on that little filter button. Suddenly, well, I was going to say 10 years drop off, but sometimes it's more like 20 depending on the filter. Although I do try and avoid those like hyper strong filters. But that's not like I'm more authentic if I only want to wipe 5 or 10 years off my age rather than 20, right? And here I am saying I love a filter. I'm not pretending that I'm not using the filters and that I really look like that. I think the reality is we all know that people don't look the way that they appear on Instagram or on other social media posts. So it begged the question to me, does it make me inauthentic if I use filters? And I realized, although it's personal to everybody and you can have your own opinion on it completely, but I realized that no, I'm not inauthentic for using filters. I'm inauthentic if I pretended that I wasn't using them or that I wasn't completely transparent about the fact I bloody love them. So here I am on one hand doing my brand photography with no filters and with no Botox or any other kind of help. Although I'm going to be like completely upfront, I have had Botox in the past and I may again in the future, but I also have completely grey hair and colour it brown. And I also have quite a thick waist that have a really good way of dressing. So it looks quite slim. It's like we like to dress, we like to present ourselves in the best possible light. And if there's an option to use a filter to do that on occasion, to give ourselves a confidence boost, so what, right? I don't think that's inauthentic any more than I think it's inauthentic that I dye my hair brown. Now, I did actually address this because when we went into lockdown for the first time and I lost my corporate job, I realized that I was free to do whatever I wanted with my hair. I didn't feel under the pressure of making sure that my hair was always, boardroom perfect every Monday morning. And instead, I decided that I was A, never going to straighten my hair again, and B, never going to dye it again. Two things that I really hated doing. So I, of course, just stopped straightening it. That was easy enough. And then I allowed the grey to grow through. And I let it grow down to, I reckon, probably from the roots down to my lower earlobes. It did get quite long, the grey, but I really didn't like it. I think I had this image that it would be a really beautiful white colour. And my mother, who's now in her 70s, only stopped dyeing her hair recently, and her hair is a really lovely white colour. But mine was a kind of steely grey colour that just wasn't very nice. I didn't like it. And I'm actually much happier now my hair is back to brown. It just feels like me. I feel happy. And I think that's the key to it. You need to do what makes you happy. You need to be authentic in just being yourself, whatever that means. And if you've got the guts to come and talk about it and to be vulnerable and authentic, then I know, because I'm experiencing it constantly myself, there are people that need to hear that message. There are people that feel validated and feel happier because they know that others have experienced it too, and others are sharing, whether it's the shame or whether it's the joy, whatever those emotions are. And I felt loads of shame for feeling embarrassed by my age, for disliking the lines on my forehead, for feeling that every time I laughed, I was creating more and more wrinkles. And I'm not going to come on here and tell you that I've learned to love my wrinkles, because that would be inauthentic. What I am here to do is to tell you that I'm happy to talk about it. I'm happy to sit comfortably in an authentic place and know that I am comprised of all of these feelings, all of these complexities. And that's what I bring to my coaching. And that's what you bring to your coaching too. Don't be afraid to lean into difficult subjects, whatever they might be. For one person, talking about aging might not be any more difficult than talking about what you had for lunch yesterday. But for somebody else, it might be something that's a real challenge. It's a real level of vulnerability. And don't always necessarily think that sharing has to be the dark night of the soul. Now, when I say that, I mean the worst thing you ever went through, the thing that actually changed everything. Now, if that's something that you want to build into your business, I fully support that. And actually, the dark night of the soul, that big transition and transformation, is part of what I include in my brand epics method, which are 5 ways for you to actually bring together your unique brand message. But you don't have to pull equally on all 5. You get to decide. And I'm going to go into detail about those 5 in another episode coming up soon. But today, I just wanted to jump in and just share a lot about what's coming up for me about aging. And I'd love to know your point of view on it as well. Am I alone in this, or is it actually something that's a pandemic of its own proportions when it comes to midlife women showing up on social media? Drop me a line on my DMs on Instagram, which is at iamjo.ingram, and let me know. And I know there's no way my podcast editing is going to take out all these background noises of the car music playing and an alarm going off in the background. I'm in a less salubrious part of London, in a grocery store car park waiting for my daughter, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed, of course, that she's passed her driving test and we can go home feeling happy. But either way, I'm super proud of that kid. She's going away to college later this year and she has just achieved so much. And I guess part of aging is the joy of the fact that our children are growing too, and we can see them turning into these young adults who are full of their own opinions and their own unique messages. And I think that's got to be one of the things that is celebrated, wrinkles and all. So sending lots of love today for your inspired action, as I know some of you really like to hear this. What is it? Something small that you can share, something that leans into a level of authenticity that maybe you didn't think was important to share before, but absolutely is. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please do hit subscribe and leave me a 5-star review over on Apple Podcasts. Us podcasters pretty much rely on people subscribing and leaving reviews so the podcast gets shared more widely. And if you're new to Goals with Soul, welcome. And you may like to drop into a couple of episodes that have been particularly popular lately. One is the interview with Dr. Jamana called Unleash the Power of Your Self-Worth, which is episode 74. And episode 75 called How to Quantum Shift Your Business Results. I share one of my favorite strategies, which is basically letting the magic in. And so until next time, have an inspired action week. Take care. Bye now.